Hey everyone, and welcome to my project proposal for the remodeling of 275 38th Street. Just a little bit about this project. So, actually, my fiance and I purchased this house back in February of 2018. So, we've been living here we bought it a little bit over a year ago. We've been living here for about 7 months at this point. So, we have about two-thirds of the house already complete. So basically, the purpose of this project proposal is to finish the other third of the house that still is in need of being completed. Some more information about this project. Couple different reasons for why we're looking to do this and why we're seeking funding for the project itself. So, number one, there's a little bit of sentimental value here in terms of my grandparents actually purchased this house back in the 1960s for, I think they told me $5,000, and so they lived there their entire lives. My dad and my uncle grew up in this house, so there's definitely some sentimental value here. So we want to get the house back to where it used to be and get it completely finished. Also financially, from an investment standpoint, looking to increase the overall appraisal value for the home. So when we originally bought the house, it appraised at $130,000, but houses in this neighborhood of comparable size were appraising from anywhere from $400,000 to $750,000. Now, $750,000. You're looking at more of the brand new higher end homes, like what you see pictured down at the bottom of this screen. So obviously knowing it's a little bit of an older house, we're doing a remodel here. It's not going to be on the higher end, but we're looking at potentially an appraisal value of over $400,000. So from an investment standpoint, definitely a really good opportunity to make just some quick money for them in terms of what they can see from a return on investment perspective. Also, my fiance and I, we were in need of a home within minutes of downtown Pittsburgh. So obviously, this was just a good overall situation from us. And then lastly, as some of you might already know, Lawrenceville, obviously, very thriving neighborhood. When I drive through the neighborhood, there's constantly construction, new apartments and new houses being put up. It seems like almost every single month. So definitely from an investment standpoint, no reason to think that you won't be able to, at least get your money back and make something off of your investment as well. The project milestone schedule. So we already got started in terms of trying to get some quotes from contractors on some of the updates that we're going to be doing in regard to this project. So, it began about 5 weeks ago, and the process of getting bids is going to continue through the end of April. Deciding on contractors to perform all of the work within the scope of all of the updates should be completed by April 30th at the latest. Looking to replace the roof first and foremost. One thing that contractors will always tell you is to complete your projects from top to bottom. So obviously roof, that's the first thing that we're going to do. So looking to have that completed by June 7th of this year. And then the following Monday is whenever we would start the remodel of the attic that we're going to be turning into additional bedrooms. So that would start on June 10th. And then we're looking at completion date of June 27th for the attic. Stairwell right now is about halfway finished. And so whenever we were moving things in and completing the bathroom and things like that, we had to move a ton of furniture upstairs. So we had to take off the prior banister that was a part of the stairwell. So we're going to need to build a new banister. So the completion date for the banister and the stairwell will be July 17th of this year. And the overall stairwell completion date, really the banister is the big thing, but stairwell completion date, right now we have finished drywall in there, but it's not painted yet. So we have to prime and paint it and then just do some trim work as well. So we're looking at the stairwell being completed July 26th. Also need to carpet the stairs as well. Basement cleanup and completion date, August 19th. That's work that I'm going to be able to perform myself. So that's not going to be outsourced to any sort of contractor or anything like that. Then we make our way to the backyard. So we're looking at replacing the fence retaining wall and the existing shed. And so completion date for that would be August 19th. And then we would be looking at a start date the following Monday, which would be August 22nd, for the deck to get started. And so we're looking at about 3.5 to 4 weeks for the deck to be completed. It's going to be a pretty major project because the existing deck's going to have to be torn down. Brand new deck that's going to be bigger is going to be built, and then we're also looking at putting in recessed lighting, potentially a fan. So there's going to be brand new electrical that's going to be need to be put out there as well. So pretty lengthy project for the deck. Looking at almost about a month for that to be completed, but completion date would then be September 16th, 2019. And as you can see at the top, debris removed from the job site as a result of all the demolition that's going to take place should also occur on the deck completion date as well. So everything should be wrapped up in terms of these updates by September 16th at the latest. Quality control plan for the project. So replacing the existing roof, looking at somebody who's a roofer, obviously, with a minimum of 5 years of experience. Really looking for, and this might be a little bit difficult to find, just with some of the contractors. I mean, some of them have websites, some of them don't. We're probably gonna look to go with somebody who has a little bit of a better reputation and has some sort of a presence online with reviews. So looking for somebody that has 4 stars or better online with at least a minimum of 50 reviews. Overall project not to exceed $10,000. Contractor must receive outdoor permit from the City of Pittsburgh zoning office. So we're not going to be responsible for getting that contractor. It's going to have to be included in the cost and a part of the scope of the work that they're going to be performing. All work performed must pass inspection by city building inspector at the conclusion of the project. Materials used should be made of asphalt shingles. Project duration not to exceed 1 week, and all old roofing materials and debris needs to be removed from the job site by contractor and included in the overall total price. Moving on to the second part of the project, so remodeling the 2 rooms in the attic and getting them finished. Once again, contractor must have minimum experience of 5 years. Reviews online should exceed 4 stars out of 5, or at least be equal to 4 stars out of 5 with a minimum of 50 reviews. Project not to exceed $15,000. Contractors must receive all applicable permits from the City of Pittsburgh zoning office, which typically they can just get a building permit to do all of the work except for the electrical. It's going to have to be a specific permit to do the electrical. All work obviously must be passed. Must pass inspection by the city building inspector at the conclusion of the project. Contractor to meet every other morning with homeowners, both myself and my fiance Felicia McKinney, to discuss progress and let us know if there's any potential changes in costs or anything like that the contractor is possibly thinking might happen. Rooms should be reframed, rewired, insulated, and should have 1/2-inch drywall. Should be hung and finished throughout the entire room. And project duration is not to exceed 1 month. Quality control plan continued. So for finishing the stairwell, once again, contractor must have a minimum of 5 years experience. Reviews online should be equal to or exceed 4 stars out of 5 with a minimum of 50 reviews. Project not to exceed $15,000. Contractor must receive all applicable permits from the City of Pittsburgh zoning office. All work performed must pass inspection by the building inspector at the conclusion of the project. Contractor to meet every other morning with homeowners Felicia McKinney and Kyle Luca to discuss progress. In stairwell, new banisters should be installed and be completely up to code. Accent walls at the landing of the stairwells should be framed and then finished with reclaimed barnwood. Carpeting to be installed on all steps and landings throughout the stairwell, and project duration not to exceed 3 weeks. And then moving on to the final phase of the project proposal, the backyard. So contractor, once again, 5 years experience. Reviews online equal to or exceeding 4 stars out of 5 with a minimum of 50 reviews. And project not to exceed $35,000. Once again, contractor must receive all applicable permits from the City of Pittsburgh zoning office. All work performed must pass inspection by city building inspector at the conclusion of the project. Contractor to meet every other morning with both myself and my fiance Felicia McKinney to discuss progress. Existing shed to be replaced with new shed along back wall. Existing retaining wall and fence to be removed from job site. New retaining wall and composite fence, vinyl fence to be installed along the perimeter of the entire yard. Current deck to be demolished and all debris to be removed from the job site. New deck to be installed measuring 10 feet by 20 feet. Composite or Trex materials to be used in construction of the new deck. Roof to be installed over the deck along with a new gutter system to divert water to the appropriate drainage system. All lighting to be built into the new roof and should be recessed dimmable lighting. Ceiling fan to be installed into the deck roof. and the deck should include 3 access points consisting of the back door of the house, alleyway to the backyard, and then steps leading to the backyard towards the shed. So the work breakdown structure, or at least the indentured version, you can see here, pretty high level, but just so you can get a kind of an idea of who's responsible for what. So Jeff, our contractor, he's our roofer. He's going to be responsible for removing the existing roof and completing the installation of the new roof. Zach, you're going to see his name a lot. He's one of our go-to contractors, but he's going to be overall responsible for the attic in terms of framing it, insulating it, framing both rooms in the attic, actually, and installing insulation into the framing. Our electrician, Ron, so he'll be responsible for rewiring the attic, installing electrical in both rooms up there. And then once the electrical is installed, Zach would then come back to the job site, hang and finish the drywall, hang all drywall, finish the drywall and paint it, and then also be responsible for carpeting it. The work breakdown structure indentured version continued, so moving on to the third phase of the project being the stairwell. So Zach going to be responsible for removing the existing banister and installing the new banister from the first floor all the way up to the third. Responsible for installing the new accent walls with the reclaimed barnwood. The carpeting of the stairs, we're going to be going through Home Depot for this project. And so that will wrap up the stairwell. And, Zach overall is the primary person responsible for that. And we'll go through that in a later slide whenever we get to the responsibility assignment matrix. Moving on to the backyard. So Mike has primary responsibility for making sure that the backyard gets completed. The shed, interestingly enough, there's actually a couple of sheds that we found at Sam's Club that we really like, so we're going to be using them for that. So, we'll work with them on getting the existing shed removed, and then they'll be responsible for dropping off and installing the new shed that we're going to be putting back there. Existing fence and retaining wall will be removed from the Pittsburgh Fence Company, and then they will also be responsible for installing the new vinyl fence and retaining wall. The deck, so this is probably the biggest project associated with the backyard. So, Mike is going to have ownership of this, and, he's going to be responsible for removing the existing deck, building the new deck, obviously, and he will also be installing the new electrical. So, one thing that's nice about that is he'll be able to take care of all of it. We won't have to bring in a separate electrician and then have to, have them coordinate schedules on when they're going to be done and when Mike can then pick up with doing whatever it is that he needs to do to complete the project. Since he'll be able to do all of it, really a lot of integration there, just kind of helps streamlining the process. So he'll be able to just take care of all of it without having to coordinate with anybody else's schedule. The responsibility assignment matrix. So, overall, I have primary ownership over just the remodel in general, with Zach being, secondary to that. Now, whenever we get down to a more granular look at things, there's going to be different people that are responsible in terms of who's going to have the primary ownership of it. But for the overall project itself, I am the primary owner of that. Now, when it comes to the roof, Jeff is going to have primary responsibility for ensuring that it's completed within scope and within budget, and I'll be the secondary owner. The attic, Zach's going to have primary responsibility for that, and once again, I'll be secondary. Not to repeat myself. So I'm going to be listed as secondary owner for everything else moving forward. So I'm just going to go through the primary owners moving forward. Framing and drywall, Zach's going to have primary ownership of that. Electrical work, Ron's going to have primary ownership of that in the attic. Carpeting, Zach's going to have primary ownership of that in the attic once again. Stairwell, Zach has primary ownership of the stairwell in totality. He's responsible for the banister, the accent walls, but then Home Depot is going to be responsible for carpeting the stairwell. The backyard, Mike's going to have primary ownership over that. Sam's Club is going to be responsible for the shed. Pittsburgh Fence Company will be responsible for the retaining wall and the fence. And then Mike's going to have primary ownership of the deck and, once again, just of the backyard and everything getting completed. The estimated cost for the project, so we're looking at about just under $63,000 for total cost. Now, this does not include any sort of contingency funds. If something were to come up that's unexpected, which frankly, if you've ever done any sort of home remodeling, pops up the majority of the time. So, overall budget, we're really looking at $75,000. But if everything were to go as planned and we weren't to have any sort of unexpected surprises happen, which is what we're hoping for, we should be able to complete this project in under $63,000. So we're looking at total cost for the roof, $10,000. That includes removing the existing roof and completing installation of the new roof. Attic, we're looking at just about $10,000. That includes, framing and insulation, new electrical, new drywall, new paint, and carpeting put in the both rooms of the attic. Estimated costs continued. So we talked about how the total cost for the attic would be just under $10,000. So moving on to phase 3 of the project proposal is the stairwell, which is going to be one of the more expensive projects. So we're looking at about $15,300. That includes installing the new banister, removing the existing banister, the accent walls that we need to put in on the landings, and carpeting the steps. So looking at a total of $15,300. And then we're going to make our way to the backyard, and I'll go through that in more detail on the next slide, but we're looking at about $27,500 in total for finishing the backyard. And last slide for the estimated cost. So just talked about the backyard and how we're estimating about $27,500. So, removing the existing shed, installation of the new shed, looking at a total of $1,000 for that. The fence and retaining wall, we're looking at about $7,500 for replacing both of those. And then obviously the major cost, which frankly we probably could go cheaper on this, but we really didn't want to spare any sort of expense whenever it came to the deck. This was something that we were really looking forward to. So, willing to spend up to $18,000 on this. And this is inclusive of removing the existing deck, building the new deck, installing new electrical. Most decks, there's very little electrical, if any. We're talking about installing recessed lighting, putting in a ceiling fan, potentially having some sort of outdoor outlets installed as well. So, really going all out for the deck project, and that's why it's running us up at $18,000. But that's an overall high-level look at the estimated cost for the project itself. Moving on to the risk register. So some of the issues that we actually experienced whenever we were finishing the 2/3 of the house that are completed, a lot of that is going to be outlined here. So number one is issues getting permits, and so if you're not able to get permits, you're in big trouble. You're not going to be able to do the work, or you can do the work, but if a building inspector happens to walk in, he will most certainly shut you down, and you will probably be looking at a pretty hefty fine for doing so. So, likelihood of this occurring is pretty low. At the end of the day, the city really just wants their money. So as long as you're filing your permit and you're paying the appropriate fees, they're going to give it to you. Degree of impact would be extremely high, but once again, likelihood of it occurring is relatively low. Response plan would really be to move on to the next possible project in the remodel process while we continue to work with the zoning office on getting the applicable permits. Another potential risk is there being asbestos in the attic. We must have asbestos abated prior to finishing the demolition if there were to be asbestos in the attic. We haven't gotten it tested yet. It looks like there probably isn't, but just one thing to obviously take into consideration though. So likelihood of occurrence, I'd say it's medium. Degree of impact. Degree of impact would be it would be medium, because at the end of the day you could pay somebody to come in and abate all of the asbestos. Problem is your budget, that $63,000 that I was talking about, that would most certainly not be obtainable at that point. We'd be looking more towards the $75,000 mark if this were to be the case. So what we'd have to do for response plan is call the abatement companies and get work scheduled as soon as possible to get the asbestos removed from the job site. Another potential risk is electric work doesn't pass inspection, which the guy that we work with, he's been doing it for almost his entire life. So the odds of this happening are very low. Could happen, but it's very, very unlikely. Degree of impact would be medium because, at the end of the day, if he were to not pass the inspection, he would have to just come back and then just fix whatever issues they had with his work and then they would come back and inspect it again. So not a huge deal, but something that we certainly don't want to run into. Banister being more expensive than expected. So there's actually a pretty high likelihood of this occurring, just because the stairwell, it's pretty windy, and it's not like a typical house. I mean, these older houses in Lawrenceville, I mean, there's 3 livable floors, so it's not like your typical split level that you would see in the suburbs where, you're looking at maybe 10 total steps. I mean, there's probably about 25 steps in this house. So the banister, it's going to be pretty big. It's going to be pretty complex. I mean, we have a pretty decent estimate out there, but it certainly could run a little bit higher than that at the end of the day whenever everything gets finished. Likelihood of this occurring, like I said, it's high, and degree of impact would be medium, because I mean, it would still get done. It would just, once again, it would put us closer to that $75,000 mark instead of the $63,000 budget that we're hoping for. Response plan would be review remaining projects to see where costs can potentially be cut a little bit. So I talked before in the estimated cost slide that we're going to be spending about $18,000 on the deck. Say the banister goes over by $1,000 or $2,000, then maybe we have to cut the deck down to $16,000 or $17,000, and we would still obviously get a really good deck and a good product for that price. Second to last, so surveyor determines that I don't own the existing fence and retaining wall in our backyard. We assume that we do, but we haven't seen an actual existing survey of the backyard. I mean, logically, it makes sense that it would be ours, but we don't know that for sure. And frankly, we really can't do any of the work or even get permits to do the work outside until we get the backyard surveyed. So impact would be that we couldn't replace the existing fence and retaining wall without the actual owner's permission, which would be my neighbor if they were to determine that it's not on our property line. Likelihood of occurrence, I'd say probably medium, maybe on the lower end even, and degree of impact would also be low. Frankly, I would say the degree of impact is low, because even if it does turn out to be my neighbors, I mean, the retaining wall and the fence, it's pretty much compromised at this point. It's something that I'm sure the neighbor would want to have replaced anyway, so I don't see them, if we're the ones willing to do the work and get it paid for, why they would ever tell us, no. So, response plan will be work with neighbor to come to an agreement on getting retaining wall and fence replaced. And lastly, for the deck, so can't get deck materials through alley to backyard. So my house, the backyard, it actually is in the back to another house. So there's no back entry is basically where I'm going with that. So it's not like they can drive up through the backyard to drop some of the deck materials off. I mean, they would literally have to either go through our house or a small alleyway to get all of the materials for the deck into the backyard. So if they can't get the materials through the alleyway into the backyard, then they may have to go through the house, which historically, anytime that we've had contractors coming through the house, they always end up banging something up, whether it's something hits off of a wall or, they're tracking things on the floor. So likelihood of occurrence for this, I mean, it's low. Degree of impact could potentially be high, though, because we have our entire first floor that's done. So if, they're bringing through all of this building material to complete the deck, it could potentially end up screwing something up that has already been finished. So, we'll have to work with potentially maybe the neighbor behind me to see if they would be okay allowing the deck contractor to unload materials from their backyard. Or if not, we have to come up with some sort of an alternative plan. Now for some of the more fun and interesting stuff, just so you can kind of get an idea of what we've already done and the work that, we're capable of with, our vision of what we want for this house. So you can see pictures below. Obviously, you can tell which one is the before and after, but picture on the left is the bedrooms whenever we initially bought the house back in February of last year. And then this is the picture to the right is August of 2018, and so bedroom pretty much completely finished. I mean, obviously we've made some minor adjustments since then, but this was it at the end of the day whenever we were finished with the bedroom project. This is another before and after picture. This is actually one that we're extremely proud of. So kitchen, whenever we bought it on the left hand side, and then August 1st, this was the finished kitchen. And so obviously you can see just a tremendous difference. I mean, picture on the left, you look at the ceiling, that was a drop ceiling. So we were able to take that out, really increase the overall size of the room, brand new drywall, obviously new cabinets, new counters, new appliances, new flooring, literally everything. So huge difference here. So I mean, you can just kind of get an idea of the theme and the style that we're going for, and what we're capable of doing if we were to get the funds that we need to move on with completing the stairwell, the backyard, the attic, and the roof. And so lastly, just one more before and after picture. This is my fiance's baby right here. I mean, she was the one responsible for designing the entire bathroom, and you can see just a tremendous difference with how frankly just how gross the bathroom was. Before, on the left hand side, you can actually see my fiance taking a picture of the bathroom in the mirror there. So I mean, this was a very important project to her, and you can see the bathroom completed project on the right. I mean, it has everything in it that you could ever want. There's 6 foot vanity, double sink vanity in there, stackable washer and dryer with its own room basically created. Really nice tub with an outdoor tub filler, and then the shower with the overhead waterfall shower head. So looks really good. It's something that obviously we're really proud of, and just really excited about potentially being able to do more things like this up in the attic, in the backyard, and in the stairwell. All right, so in closing, obviously thank you for your consideration with potentially funding this project. I truly believe that if we were to be able to receive the funds that we need to finish this, that the appraisal, the home value will end up being at $400,000 or higher. Really safe investment here. I mean, potential for you to put a lien on the house with your investment. Although I mean, it's not something that you'll really need to do. I mean, we guarantee we'll be able to pay the money back by the end of the first quarter 2020. So you're talking potentially loaning the money for less than a year, getting all of that money back, and making some profit on it as well. So once again, thank you for your time, thank you for your consideration, and have a good day. Thank you.